Good evening, everyone. Hello. Welcome. I'm going to put this mic down a little bit. I'm going to raise it back up, but I'm short. I am so excited to be here with you tonight. This is our first yarn show, live yarn show since COVID hit. Thank you for coming out and supporting our amazing storytellers that are about to grace us with their presence tonight. But more importantly, we want to celebrate the 37 storytellers who contributed to the yarn book. So let's give them a round of applause. We are here tonight to celebrate storytelling, and we know now more than ever how important it is and how rare it is to feel connected to each other. So I hope this book really highlights the love and support and pride and heart that we as Arkansans, and we also have a few out-of-towners in the book, feel for each other and are similar, maybe in more ways than we are different. Tonight, we are highlighting 7 of the storytellers in the book. They will be telling their true stories that are in the book, but they haven't told these stories for quite some time. So it's been almost 3 years for some of our storytellers from when they first told the story to now. We had a rehearsal last night, and I'm sorry that you weren't all there for it, but that would defeat the purpose. But it was so powerful, and I was honored to be there. I'm honored to be a part of this cast of storytellers. I'm honored that I have been able to work for the past 4 years with an incredible team, but that all of the storytellers who are in the book have been so willing to share a piece of themselves with this book. So again, I just want to thank all of the storytellers here tonight. And if you are a storyteller who is in the book, if you just quickly stand up just so we see how many there are with us tonight. Andy Vaught, you're also in the book, so you should stand up right now. Yep. We have a lot of amazing storytellers. They will be called by name at the end of the show, but I want to get us started because we have some amazing tales to hear tonight. So I am going to hand it over to our fabulous MC. Hopefully you know who she is, and if you don't, please introduce yourselves to her because she is one of the most wonderful, dynamic, unique, fabulous people that I know. Her name is Crystal C. Mercer. She is a Black creator. She is a poet. She just recently published a book that she sewn the whole thing. So if you have not, and what's the name of the book? The Magic of Black Hair, right? From Cotton to Silk, The Magic of Black Hair. So that's another book that Italia Press has published and is on distribution, so please check that out. She is one of my favorite people. She is a classmate from mine at the Clinton School of Public Service, but she is an activist, an artist, and a public servant. She utilizes theater, poetry, and textiles to communicate ancestral messages and tell social justice narratives. I couldn't think of a person I would rather be leading us through the show tonight than Crystal C. Mercer. So please give it up and have a great show.
Thank you. Y'all give it up for Hillary. Yes. I'm on host duty and mic sanitation. Somebody say truth. Somebody say truth a little louder. Somebody say truth a little louder. That is what I'm talking about. We are here tonight for Truths We Tell Live. Hey, I hear that beer kicking in. Yes, I have me one too. Tonight we're going to go through 7 storytellers. I am one of them, but I'm going to take you on a journey first for somebody who is a dear friend. She is awesome. She is 2 months into mommyhood. Y'all give it up for that. Yes. I'm going to bring to the stage Chauncey Holloman Pettis. She is the 33-year-old CEO of Harlem Lyrics, LLC, and the Arkansas Women's Business Center Director for Windrock International. That means she got some coins, y'all. She is a mentor, a public speaker, and a community servant. Chauncey has over 10 years of passion and expertise in the world of entrepreneurship and small business development. In 2018, she was appointed by Windrock International. That means she knows what she's doing as the director director of the Arkansas Women's Business Center, where she continues, yeah, y'all give it up for that. She is ushering women into their own selves, running their own businesses, making their own money and their own decisions. And let me tell you, she owns every bit of who she is. Y'all give it up for Chauncey Holloman Pettis. Hot mama to the stage. Hot mama to the stage. I'm wiping off the mic for hot mama on the stage. Hey.
So like the first thing was not following up the stairs. So I did that. I'm happy.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. So I'm glad she gave me the disclaimer about the new mom. So this is my first time talking to adults in a while. So if I make weird baby sounds, just roll with me. So I grew up in a family with 56 women and 4 men. So that means we had a whole lot of moms, not a lot of dads. And so the women in my family needed to have a way to be present and active in their kids' lives while also being that breadwinner with full-time employment, you know, because the world agrees you need like light, water, gas at least, like bare minimum. So they needed a way to make money. So having said that, I grew up in generations of Black women-owned businesses that were part of my family. All of myself, my cousins, we grew up in family-owned restaurants, hair salons, daycares, you name it. So entrepreneurship is a part of my life and my core. So my first experience, personal experience with my good friend Entrepreneurship, when I was about 12 years old. I tried out for the dance team at my school. And for those of you who have ever done extracurriculars, you know that comes with dues. And so I made the dance team, and I came to my mom and said, Mom, I made the dance team. I'm really excited. She said, thank you, baby. I'm so proud of you. I knew you could do this. I said, thanks, Mom. The dues are due in about 3 months, and they're $600. My mom said, no problem at all, baby. You're responsible for raising half of that. And I said, I'm 12. $300, that's a lot of money. What am I supposed to do? She said, figure it out. If there's something you want in this world, you're responsible for making it happen. I'm responsible for helping you and supporting you, not for doing it for you. And so several months passed over the summer. I decided I'm going to sell candy door to door, right? That's a pretty common kid thing to do. And I came up with 2 problems with selling candy as a 12-year-old. One, going door to door in your neighborhood takes a long time when you're 12. 2, candy is heavy. And so I decided to put a pause on it and go to school, sell candy at school. Bunch of kids in one spot, genius. So my classmates were my customers. My teachers were my customers. I remember vividly one day, I was late for school because I had my books, I had my backpack, and you guys remember the school boxes that you would carry with the pencils in it, but the ones that had like all the compartments? I had 2 of those full of candy. So I looked like this mob boss with these big suitcases walking down the hallway. And so I'm late trying to carry all my things, and I get stopped by a security guard. And the security guard says, hey, you, where are you supposed to be? And I said, Miss Wilson's class, I'm on my way. It's just, I got a lot of stuff. He said, well, get where you need to be. Get where you need to be. And I turned around and I walked away. He said, hey, you. I said, we just did this. And he said, I'll take 2 Snickers. Give me a Snicker. And so I did this for a couple months at school, and then one day I got called to the principal's office, and my mom's already there, so that's never a good thing. And so I sit there, and the teachers and the principal says, all right, Miss McCoy, that's my mom's name, we're so proud of the initiative that Chauncey is taking. I mean, she's really a go-getter. However, this is becoming distracting in class, and frankly, we're a little concerned that a 12-year-old has this much cash on hand, so we're going to have to ask her to stop. And so I had to close the door on Sweets Inc., which is what I named my candy selling business, and they had to close the doors on Sweets Inc. By the way, I found it really suspicious that the school opened like a snack shop like a month after they shut me down. But that's fine. They put the competition out of business. My second experience with entrepreneurship was several years later, and I was in high school. And so I had my best friend in the world. She turned 16, and she needed the perfect greeting card, and I couldn't find it. I found myself with 3 problems again. 1, very few of the greeting cards on the market look like me. 2, even less of them were my age. And 3, none of them sound like me. And so I find myself with the opportunity to solve problems again. So I go to my mom. I say, hey, Mom, I know what I want my first business to be. I want to start a line of greeting cards for black teenage girls. And my mom says, why are you the person to do this? And I said, well, I already write poetry. I've been told I'm kind of good. I can do this. A greeting card is just a poem you sell, right? She said, okay. Well, I need you to give me a business plan. And if I'm 15 at the time, I said, what the heck is that? And she said, figure it out. If there's something you want in this world, I'm responsible for helping you and for supporting you, not for doing it for you. So I go to Ask Jeeves at the time. And I do my research on a business plan, right? And I spend months agonizing over this document. And so I draft this 7-page business plan, and you cannot tell me that it does not deserve every single literary award you can give a thing that you've written. And so I bring it to my mom, and I said, hey, Mom, I did it. Here's my business plan. It's rather good. And my mom says, okay, I'm going to look this over. And I said, well, I have to ask you a question, though. Everything I saw said business plans are for banks and investors, and so why did you need a business plan? And my mom said, I am the bank. So if you want my money, you have to convince me. And so she actually takes that time to raise personal funds, because we're middle class at this point. We don't just have a whole bunch lying around. So she raises funds, and she supports Harlem Lyrics. A few months later, we are in Kroger's stores. We're in Walgreens and Border Books. So we're doing good as Harlem Lyrics. 2 years later, after we launch, we start a stationery line, which is notebooks and folders, other school supplies. If black women didn't find themselves in greeting cards, they definitely weren't in other products that you have at a young age. So we're doing good, and we're picking up some buzz. We get on Black Enterprise Magazine, Montel Williams, so I'm dating myself. That was a show that people watched at a point in time. And we were in Cosmo Girl magazine a couple of times. So we're really kind of proud of how we're going here. So one day we get a call. And a woman calls us and she said, I just want to tell you how important your cards are to me. I have 2 teenage black girls. And the fact that they can see themselves in these greeting cards and feel that their moments are just as important as everyone else's moments means a lot to me. And I said, well, thank you so much. At this point, we're about 5 years into Harlem Lyrics, so this call is not really that unnormal. We get a couple of these every now and then. I said, thank you so much. Thank you for calling us. We're glad you like the products. And she said, oh, I'm sorry, I buried the lead. I'm a buyer for Macy's department stores. And I want to see if you'd be interested in coming out, flying to our New York flagship store, and presenting your company to us to potentially have your products in Macy's. Hell yeah, we're interested. So we're really excited. We spend some time preparing for this pitch of our lives. We spend thousands of dollars getting products printed, display stuff printed, right? And we fly out to Macy's, and we do what I consider one of the best pitches I've done ever. At this point, I am 18 years old. We've had the company for about 5 years, and we're really proud of the pitch we did. We shook everyone's hands. They said, great job, you did a great job. And so we're proud. We go back home. She said, we'll be in touch in about a week. Longest week of my young life. And so we wait by the phone, and finally we get the call. And she said, Chauncey, Sabrina? And we said, yeah, this is us. She was like, I just want to say thank you again for coming out. You did a phenomenal job. I love the products. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to carry your products in our stores. She said, don't take this personal. I wouldn't tell you to do anything differently. And I said, well, what happened? Just for our own, knowledge, what went wrong? She said, well, the buyer for stationery, which falls under notebooks and folders and greeting cards, the buyer for stationery, his name is Jim, and he just really didn't understand the line. He didn't really get it. And I said, okay. So I got off the phone, and I cried profusely, as one does, and I realized again I have 2 problems. Jim and he. And so from that day on, we coined this the Jim effect. When somebody just doesn't get you and is not a part of the culture that you're trying to represent. And so after we put some thought into it, I decided to call the buyer back, and I said, hey, let me ask you a question. When we first met, you said that you were a buyer for Macy's department stores, right? And she said, yeah, I'm a buyer. I said, so what do you buy? She said, I buy junior girls apparel. I said, okay, how about this? Give me one more shot. one more shot. And let me present a line of T-shirts made from the same characters in the greeting cards. If you like them, great. If you don't, no harm, no foul. And she says, okay. So we scheduled to come back out and pitch. At this point, we spent even more money than we did for the first pitch that we already got a no on, right? So we're really risking it here. So we go out, we develop 8 original T-shirts off of the Harlem Lyrics characters. We go back out, we present our line to her, and she says, sold. Yes. So right after that, we find ourselves in 33 Macy's stores, regardless of the gym effect. Regardless of the gym effect, we were in Chicago's, New Jersey, and New York Macy's department stores for several years. I tell this story because what entrepreneurship taught me as a woman of color, as a woman in general, as a young person at the time, is that nothing is insurmountable. Nothing is unteachable, and nothing is unlearnable. As long as you have the time to not only chase your dreams, strive forward, and spend some time paying attention, listening to the stories of anyone that comes to you, even if it's a little girl going from door to door selling candy, trying to find a way to make ends meet. Thank you.
Yes, y'all keep it going for Chauncey. Thank you, Hillary. Hillary on tech support tonight. She does so many things, y'all. How many people have a copy of this book? Just show of hands. All right, how many people don't have a copy of this book? Don't worry, friend. Tanya, we got you. Somebody say we got you. You can get a copy of True Sweet Tale tonight right at the gate for only $29.95. Somebody give it up for $29.95. That means you get 37 stories for less than $1 a piece, y'all, okay? We are feeding the children with this good truth. And coming to the stage next, we have one of those 37 storytellers. He's a funny guy. He's a friend of mine. It's Kevin Hale Hunt Sr., or the H is silent, as he said earlier when we were doing our warm-up. Just kidding. He's a native of Little Rock, y'all, Little Rock boy. He is the son of a strong mother, a strong father, influenced by his grandmother and great-grandmother. He is also the proud father of one son, Kevin L. Hunt Jr., and the husband of the love of his life, Maggie F. Hunt, and she is beautiful, y'all, okay? He know what he was doing. Kevin is also a published author. He published a book in 2018, Why Me, God? Because I Ordained Your Steps. Hello. Which was released in March of that year. Following that, he started a company called Lessons Learned. He founded a nonprofit because he busy and he know what he doing, inspiring other people. And he is the host of Your Voice, Your Reason podcast. He serves on the board of the Arkansas Coalition of Juvenile Justice and the Watershed, Inc., which if any of you have been in Little Rock for any amount of time, you know Thanksgiving and Christmas, y'all was stuffing them bags, y'all was taking them turkeys, y'all was volunteering y'all service. Somebody say service. Yes. And the Watershed is the world's first social hospital, which is led by his mentor and spiritual father, Reverend Hezekiah Stewart, a beautiful man, but also a beautiful man coming to the stage, Kevin L. Hunt Sr. Y'all give it up. Kevin. Gonna clean your mic, gonna clean your mic, gonna clean your mic, gonna clean your mic.
Oh. Hello. Just want to make sure everybody can hear. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you. Oh, man, thank you too, Hillary, and the whole team. I just appreciate everything that you all doing because there's some amazing stories out here. And I'm just blessed to be a part of it, to even be chosen to share my story. So I thank you, Hillary, and the whole team for everything you all done. Yes, my name is Kevin Hunt, and I just want to walk you all down my story, my truth, what happened to me when I was younger and how I was able to overcome that later on in my life. When I was younger, like in the fourth, fifth, sixth grade, I struggled a lot in the classroom. I was always angry, mad. I wanted to fight. I kicked tables. I did a little cursing. Yes, I used to curse out my teachers and everybody else in the school. I had a lot of fights. I lost a lot of fights. I just struggled in the classroom a lot, not because not because I wasn't smart or it wasn't because I couldn't learn or anything. I was upset when I went to school is because I had challenges going on at home. And my teachers at the time, and this is the case a lot still going on, don't understand what a lot of kids have going on. So I struggled at school because I was angry about my situation at home. Sometime when I was sent off to school, I didn't see my mother. And sometime when I came home from school, I didn't see my mother. And so when I'm staying with my grandmother and great-grandmother all the time and wishing I could see my mom sometime and mother wasn't there, that upset me. And so when I went to school from Monday through Friday, from 3rd to 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and on grade, I always reacted in a way because I was so frustrated and mad because my mother wasn't there. Now, Dad was here in Little Rock. He was a few blocks, but I didn't see Dad very much. My dad is one of my best friends still today. I didn't hold anything against him, but it was just that mother love that I didn't have when I was in elementary, and that made me respond in a way. And so every time Mama wasn't at home, I was angry, and every time I went home and I didn't get that love that she used to share with us when I was real little, I was angry. And so all that anger built up in the school, and I used to get thrown out of class over and over and over. And every time I got sent to the hallway, and every time I was in the principal's office, I missed out on an opportunity to learn my ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. And so that caught up with me later on. I went on to the 7th grade, and I played basketball. And I should not have passed the 6th grade because I couldn't pass any of those tests, but they moved me up anyway. And they moved me up from the 7th to the 8th grade. Because of the basketball, I was able to continue to go up in the grade. But my mother, so they shipped me during my 8th grade year, they shipped me to Arizona because my mother she had went to prison. And of course, my mother was on drugs at the time. You know, I lived in a household where when I was in elementary, my mother was on drugs, my uncle was on drugs, my father was also on drugs, my cousins was on drugs, my auntie was on drugs, and we all stayed in this 3-bedroom house. Matter of fact, I'm from right down in this neighborhood, about 4 or 5 blocks from here. And so we all stayed in this house. So many of us, my grandmother, my auntie kids, my uncle kids, it's just a whole bunch of people, and everybody in here is on drugs. And this was a defining one moment for me. I went into my mother was at home. I went into the room, and I was going back there to see her because my grandmother told me she was back there. And when I opened the door, and my mother saw me, caught me before I opened the door, and she pushed me out. And so from that moment, that made me feel like I wasn't wanted. That made me feel like she chose the drugs over me. And so I went back to in the living room, my grandmother, and I cried. So that stayed with me for a long time. So when I was playing basketball, I was angry on the court. When I was in the 7th grade, I was angry in the class in the 8th grade. And so when my mother went to prison during my 8th grade year, after when they shipped me to Arizona, I came back home when she got out of prison. And when I came back home, I just said, man, I'm just so tired of school. For once, I still couldn't read, write, or spell because I stopped learning to read, write, or spell when I was in the 4th, 5th, 6th grade. And so that was a problem with me later on in my life. And once I dropped out of school after my 8th grade year, I started getting into a lot of crimes. And on this same 6th Street, and there used to be another street, 3rd Street, before they built the clinic school. We used to walk downtown all the time and steal coins out the old State House, take those coins and go buy chips and candies and all that little thing because that's all the money that we could afford, all the money that we had, me and a lot of my friends. And so once I dropped out of school and I got involved with gang stuff and I started committing all type of crimes, where I found out where the money was at was on the same pathway, the same trail that I went downtown to pick those coins. When I was 12 and 13 years of age, we used to snatch purses downtown. I remember this day like it was yesterday. And this was all a part because of not having that love, that father figure, that guidance in my life. And so I started gang banging, started snatching purses, and we went from gang banging to snatching purses. We got hold to a gun, and now we started committing robberies, all right here in the downtown area. Me and my friends, all of us was going through the same thing. So I came up in a great household. My grandmother and great-grandmother loved us, but we had some challenges in the household. So, you know, you hear about the stories that you can't do this, you can't do this, and that started to be my life, what I thought I couldn't do. And when I was dropping out of school and getting involved with gangs, and started snatching purses and committing robberies, and then by the time I was 15 years of age, because of the gang activity, I ended up getting shot. And when I got shot, I remember like this day, my mother was back in prison. My father didn't come up and see me. I was shot. I was in the hospital. My grandmother came up there. I got out the hospital. I wanted to do something else, but there wasn't anything else to do because I couldn't read, write, and spell. And so eventually, once I healed, I got back into the streets again. I started selling drugs again. I started committing robberies again. I started doing all those things over and over again. And by this time, I'm 16 years of age, and now I'm committing so many crimes now because that's the only thing I knew. I grew up poor. I never knew what $20 looked like. Well, I did one time. I never knew what a $100 bill looked like. I never knew what it felt like to go in the store and buy some brand new shoes because we was poor. All those nights of staying in a house where either our water, gas, or lights wasn't on. So most of my life, my childhood, and all the way up until after my late teens, I always stayed in a house with roaches, rats, and holes in the wall. Like, that was normal to me. So it wasn't nothing to see some rats and roaches and holes in the wall and your water's off and your gas off. So that's the life that I lived in all my life. And so once I dropped out of school, got involved in gangs, and I was getting involved in gangs a lot more and more at the age of 16, I ended up catching an adult charge, and I went to prison when I was a teenager. So when I went to prison, and I got down in prison, I remember this like it was yesterday. I didn't know what prison was, and just the truth, I didn't even know how to spell prison. So I went up for parole after I did 3 years. I went up for parole, and they gave me a year to now, and this is a true story, and this is why I say my lack of education caught up with me once again. I had got a year to now, and this guy was in prison. He asked me, Kevin, he said, he read the paper to me. He said, man, you got a year to now. And he said, Kevin, why don't you apply for appeal? And I looked at this guy, and I said, man, what is appeal? And he looked at me like, wow. He had a chance. He really experienced like, man, this dude don't even know what appeal was, and I didn't. You gotta understand, I dropped out of school after my 8th grade year, but I really stopped learning when I was in elementary. At 20-something years of age, when I was out of prison, I may have been in my early 20s, I didn't even know how to spell the word apple. I tell people this all the time. This was after I got out of prison. So I didn't know how to spell the word apple, but I knew apple had an A, I knew it had some P's in it, I knew it had some L in it, and I used to spell apple A-L-P-P-E. So moving forward, after I got out of prison, when you get out, I made on the parole board again, and I made the board, and I got out, so I said, oh, now what I'm gonna do? Now everybody in prison told me what I couldn't do, and everybody that was in my community told me what I couldn't do. So when I got out of prison, I went right back to the same thing that I always done. I started committing crimes. I got back involved with the gang stuff. I got shot again. I was just over and over, I was selling drugs. My mother had got off of drugs. She had not been to prison more, so she was going on the upward, but I was still going on the downwards. My life started going back down the downward spiral. And my grandmother used to always tell me this for 7 years. She said, Kevin, why don't you go back to school? And the truth is, I wanted to go back to school, but I knew deep inside that I couldn't read, write, or spell. And that was hard to kind of explain to my grandma. But I was good at committing crime, but I couldn't read, write, or spell. And so my grandma kept telling me that and telling me that for years, and then after about 7 years, she passed away. So one day after my grandmother passed away, I decided I'm gonna go back to school. Even though I knew I couldn't read and write or spell. I went to Shorter College Adult Education Center, which I got my Shorter College Adult Education director over there, Dr. Crutchfield, and Deborah Baker. And I went up to Shorter College Adult Education Center, and I was really afraid. And I went through those doors. When I went through those doors for the first time in my life, outside of my family, somebody loved on me. I'm talking about the truth. They loved on me. They made me feel the person that could not spell in 2001, Apple, they made me feel like I was the smartest person in the world. And when they was found able to break that wall down that I can't, I was able to start learning. I remember one of the teachers telling me, Kevin, he said, what's your favorite rap song? And I told him my favorite rap song, and I was quoting, and I was hitting the desk at the Adult Education Center. They said, if you can memorize those lyrics that you had never seen, you can use that brain to learn how to read, write, and spell. Phew! Changed my whole life. No one had ever told me that in my life. And I was like, can I? And from that point on, I kept learning and learning and learning and learning. Fast forward, I passed my adult education test the first time taking. I had the highest score out of the whole group. I received my GED. And when I received my GED, they told me, Kevin, now it's time to take it to the next level. It's time to go to college. I only came there to just get my GED for my grandmother so I can go get me a job and start doing it. But they said, no, Kevin, you need to go to college. And I took on that challenge, and I went to Philander Smith College. And when I went to Philander Smith College, I went and worked and got around people that wanted something out of life, something that I had never been around in my entire life, people that wanted something out of life. And so I worked my butt off. I graduated with honors, and then there was opportunity came when somebody said, Kevin, she said, this true story, I went to the Department of Human Service, the Department of Finance, and I tried to put in an application for a job. And they said, she said, son, we can't hire you because you got a felony on your record. She said, but check this out. And let me just show you how God worked in my life. I'm just talking about me, how God worked in my life. She said, I know this lady. She worked on this guy's campaign. He's the Attorney General. He's running for the governor's office. Go work for him, Kevin. Volunteer for him. And if he win, fill out a pardon application and say, hey, man, I volunteered for you, and he might give you a pardon. So she did that, put me in contact with the person. I went volunteer for the campaign. I ended up working on the campaign in 2006. And then when that person won in 2007, which was at that time was Governor Mike Beebe, I knew that I couldn't work there. I'm an ex-gangbanger. I got bullet holes. I dropped out of school in middle school. I've been through a whole bunch of stuff. My mom was on drugs. My auntie was on drugs. My cousin was on drugs. My older brother got on drugs. My little sister is on drugs still today. So I knew I couldn't work in the governor's office. So when the opportunity came, they said, Kevin, and there's some more parts to that, like, Kevin, come fill out this application. Even though I knew I couldn't work, somebody else said, well, let me give you a chance. I filled the application out. They hired me in 2006. I worked in the governor's office. I didn't tell no one but a couple people that I had been to prison. And this is what happened to me through the whole time that I was in the governor's office. For a small period of time, I was in the governor's office. I was worried that one day that somebody was going to find out that the kid from right down the street, Little Rock, Arkansas, from this neighborhood, that had a record in the Little Rock Police Department for everything he has done. Who in the court, they said I was the leader of the gang. They said this had so much stuff on my name. I had tattoos all over my body, just so much. I said one day somebody in the governor's office is going to find out that I had been to prison when I was a teenager. And one day I was sitting in my office, and I ain't gonna say his name. He came to the office and said, "Hey, Kevin, come meet with us in about 10 minutes." And his office was about 10, 15 feet from mine. And the only thing I can think about in my mind was, they found out I'd been to prison, and they about to fire me. So when I walked over there to the office, I went over there, and I was just thinking in my mind all these negative thoughts about what's going to happen to me. Oh, they finna fire me. I was going to call my mom. I was going to tell her, like, oh, man, they fired me because they found out I had been to prison. And so when I went over there, and they were sitting there talking to me like, hey, Kevin, look, man, we appreciate everything you did. So in my mind, I knew what the next words was going to be. So I was thinking all these thoughts, negative thoughts about, man, I'm gone. And they were just constantly talking. They was constantly talking to me, and they just said, say, Kevin, so what you think about it? And I looked at them, and I said, think about what? They said, the promotion. And I said, what promotion? They said, promotion we just offered you. And that just made me just feel like I was just thanking God in my mind. You just don't know how excited I was that the same person that had been to prison, couldn't read, write, or spell, mama and father and everybody's on drugs, had just got a promotion in the governor's office. And from that point forward, I have always told myself, Kevin, I never allow my past to handicap my future. Thank you, and that's my story.
Y'all keep those hands going for Kevin and his beautiful life story. Now, Kevin, look at this. This mic is over my afro. Look at what you did. Oh, thank you, Hillary. Thank you, mic support. Yeah, that's good. I got my heels on tonight, so we good. Thank you, thank you. Cowboy boots. Somebody say boots. Yes, Southern girl. And a little birdie told me, the bird's name is Hillary. She's cute, she's blonde, that the books are not $29.95. They're $25.95. Yes, so be sure For my friends who raised their hand, Tanya, don't worry, I got you because you got me a beer. I got you, girl. That you go over there before you leave tonight at the gate and make sure you get a copy of this book. But we're giving it to you live tonight, and we're going to keep this thing moving. Coming up next to the stage is Molly Reed. She has a degree in creative writing, which she puts to use for various things as a freelance writer. She owns her own company, F. Reed Writing Co., writing website content, blogs, advertising copy, social media, commissioned short stories, and even custom love letters. Aw, I know, that's so cute, girl, write me one. She shared her story in the Love Yarn Show because she wanted to create something meaningful and relatable that might reach out to others while expressing a little bit of her inner landscape. Basically, she wanted to see if she could still write for the joy of it. You know how I get when you gotta write for work, y'all. It'd be a little hard, but she was like, yes, I love this. And in the process of performing where she can adequately express herself, she hopes that other queer people, somebody say queer, yes. Yes with the yes, okay. Other queer people, people with moms, woo, and people with friends who are queer and or have moms, take something positive away from her story. Y'all give it up for Molly Reed. Cleaning the mic, cleaning the mic. Oh, yeah. Help. The bird Hillary's helping.
Thank you.
Boom. Yes. All us shorty doo-wops up here.
Yeah, short people problems. Hi, guys. My mother has always asked the questions. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, they always have a capital Q, and they are always asked with the injured, fearful air of somebody who has been anxiously contemplating all of the possible answers for a really long time. When I was 12, I smashed my finger between our home's old school glass water jug and its ceramic stand. Because I had lived a sheltered life that knew no pain until that point, I passed out. I awoke to my mother shaking me and saying, Molly, are you anorexic? I was confused and again 12, so I looked up at her and said, no, I don't think so. My finger still hurt really bad, but she made me eat 6 peanut butter crackers in front of her, just to make sure. When I was 14, my mother shook me awake from a dead sleep. It was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so that was my fault, but I was a teenager. And she asked me, Molly, are you depressed? I assured her blearily and with supreme teenage annoyance, no, I am not depressed. I just stayed up late reading. God. She stood up, she opened all of the blinds in my window, and she told me, get out of bed, go take a shower, and then go outside and look at the sky. It said cure for depression, according to Cindy. When I was 17, I ordered fried chicken, waffles, and a chocolate milkshake at IHOP. It was awesome. But halfway through my chicken, my mom stared at me for a long moment, and then she asked, Molly, are you pregnant? Devoted Christian teen that I was at the time, I choked on my chicken. No, I am not pregnant. Yes, I can be sure. I am a virgin. The waitress was so embarrassed that my milkshake was free. 4 years later, I had been lulled into a false sense of security. I began to assume that all of the big questions had been answered satisfactorily. 40 minutes into a 3-hour ride to Fayetteville, the car was quiet. Soft rolls of pine-covered mountaintops rolled past the window, bisected by concrete and electrical lines. My breath was making fog on the window pane, and I lifted my finger to scribble temporary graffiti in the patch. Molly, are you dating Afton? My stomach disappeared from my body. I stared at my paintbrush finger, and with a sticky, numb mouth, I tried for a casual, what? Why would you ask? Why do you ask? I could hear the steering wheel creak underneath her hands. I watched a drop of condensation bleed towards the windowsill, suddenly completely fascinated with its trajectory. I had a dream. A laugh huffed from my constricted diaphragm. An agony of surprise and horror compelled me to turn and face her, my sharp, small mother. My heart beat cold against my forehead, and time moved like molasses while I counted the freckles on her face, drifted over the scars under her eyes, noted with squeamish alarm the grays that were appearing in her dark hair. Cindy is a woman of prescience. She is uncanny with her sharp green gaze and the blazing protection of her righteous, ruthless curiosity. She once predicted her own uncle's death the night before he died. In college, she shamed a ghost by throwing open a shower curtain, stomping her foot buck naked and screaming, "Are you happy now, you dirty old perv?" The creepy chuckling that had haunted the girls' bathroom for months was never heard from again. At that moment, my mother's face was an achingly familiar, beautiful blank while she waited for me to break her heart. I wasn't ready. I am never ready when she forces the truth on me, from me. A dream? My voice sounded distant and slow in my own ears. The screws at the edges of her mouth tightened and glass fell from her mouth, glistening, sharp, broken. Are you dating her? I hovered over myself, reaching an incorporeal hand to cover my own mouth as I listened with horror to hear myself reply, "Yes?" It hurt to look at her, so I looked back at the window, the faintest trace of the line that I had drawn still visible on the window pane. Wet tires swooshed underneath us, and we held ourselves tightly together, trying not to let the spaces around us touch. I almost fell asleep with the tension. I was so enthralled by it. Her plaintive, "Why?" washed over that silence and drowned it. Why? Why love? Why Afton? Mind pictures of dance, kiss, soft, love, lust bombarded my senses. Sensual syntax that defies words, is cheapened by words. They all crowded in my cerebellum. My doodling hand grasped my chest, and my mouth was moving like it knew that words should be coming out. But why is too big of a question? Classic parent stumper and philosopher's friend. It asks for everything, and it is never satisfied. Why will make you crazy. I had driven myself half mad with why for months, from the moment that my lips first touched hers. When I let it, why crushed me, heavy and ecclesiastical, into the ground. It left the imprint of the carpet on my back with its weight. It stole the voices of my sister and my friend and my church, and it pinned me to the ground with them. Why stole my peace and my wonder. It stole my giddy curiosity and my chance at joy in new love. And now it quashed my words. All I could say to my mother's profile was, "I don't know." So many questions followed in the pursuit of the larger why after that to enumerate them all would be a false memory. I know for sure that I answered with some weird blur of gender studies textbooks and coming out pamphlets. I mentioned subcultures and the patriarchy. I think I quoted statistics on sexual assault. I waxed rhapsodic about changing church views and the socioeconomic equality of a female pair, the belonging that comes with being part of a minority oppressed group. I wove a tapestry of pleading and convincing around myself. It was like a blanket, but it never touched me. As the tapestry became thicker and more insulating, I started to panic, to resent its existence. I was backing myself into a corner I was not ready to be in. I was being trapped by my own reasons. I had been conditioned my whole life to answer incredibly personal, bluntly asked questions at truly, deeply inconvenient moments. And I was pretty good at it. So it felt like I should know the answer to why. like I should be able to grasp and relay more eloquently the answer to why are you gay? The rest of that 2-hour conversation and all of the conversations that followed over the next years left me wounded. Some of those wounds were self-inflicted. Some of those wounds were left by family, close friends, coworkers. They were wounds of misunderstanding, of being labeled, compartmentalized, of raging against the unfairness of being defined by this one small part of myself. Coming out is supposed to be liberating. That's how the stories go. It's what TV tells us. But for me, it was agonizing. I watched as all the other pieces of my identity, my love of language, my empathy, my obsession with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, my deep and abiding hatred for olives, I hate them, all of that faded behind my queerness. It took me a long time to realize that the problem was not my frantic, fumbled answers. It was the question itself. When you tell someone your name or your age, they don't follow up with, why? Your name is what you call yourself, and your age is based on the date of your birth. They might ask you why if you say, my favorite color is lavender, or I love angry girl music and hate indie punk. Why implies a condition of choice. It suggests that there is a whole other way of being, and your way might be wrong. 10 years later, hindsight had granted me the wisdom that I lacked at 21. Now, when I come out, and some of you in this room might know that is pretty much a daily event, now I'm able to smile serenely in the face of every sneering why, and I respond with the word that never asks for anything in return, the word that is always satisfied, and the word with which I wish I had answered my mother all those years ago: love.
Yes, yes, yes. Love. Yes. Somebody say love. Oh, I am feeling the love. Thank you, Molly, for your beautiful story, which you can get right here in True Sweet Tale. But we're giving it to you live tonight, y'all. Coming to the stage, a story you should definitely listen to, because you know the book is interactive, right? Somebody say right. The book is interactive. Every story has a QR code that you can boop, bam, and listen to it, but you're getting a special treat. And the next friend coming to the stage is Mcginney. He is a writer, a photographer living in Little Rock, Arkansas, but he's a native of Kansas, one of my favorite places because that's where The Wizard of Oz took place. Ryan served in the U.S. Marine Corps before completing degrees in government and journalism. He's smart, y'all, and he has lived in Arkansas ever since 2009, where he's written about rural issues in agriculture. He's also a woodworker and the most insufferable and ultra runner. I'm gonna run to my couch after this tonight, so you got that, boo. Occasionally, he has a drink or two, so somebody buy him a beer tonight, but y'all give him a round of applause. Coming to the stage, Ryan Mcginney.
There was a time in my life when I was in love with a woman who just needed some cats in her life. In about 1999, we married after having met through a personals periodical. We corresponded for about 2 years, spent fewer than 30 days in each other's physical presence, and then we just did the deed. Despite this sort of laissez-faire approach to matrimony, I had some real caution about getting cats. For a couple of reasons, one of which is I'm reasonably allergic to the dander, and I didn't fancy having a house full of cat hair. The other reason is I had not really grown up with pets per se, with one exception, and I don't want to go down too big a rabbit hole here, but when I was 8, my parents just kind of gave me a dog. I'm not sure I even asked for it. But needless to say, I didn't really know what was going on. And between two parents who are real checked out and an 8-year-old who doesn't know anything about raising a dog, pretty soon you just end up with this creature who sort of barks all the time and tries to bite everyone on the face. And that is how you then, in turn, end up taking a pretty short drive to whatever the opposite of a no-kill shelter was in 1983. But cats are adorable, okay? So my wife at the time, she set to the grindstone of the internet and arrived at a compromise, the hairless cat. Also known as a sphinx. Now, if you're buying a hairless cat, you're not buying it out of the back of a pickup truck next to a basket of peaches in Yellowville, Arkansas. You're pretty much going to a breeder. And if you're going to go to a breeder, you might as well go big. So we drove our happy asses out to New Orleans, where we found a very niche breeder, and we bought two 13-week-old sisters from the same litter. We named them Flannery and Sephora. We put them in little carriers in our car and began our trip back to Tampa, Florida to start our new life as a happy cat family. About 2 hours into this adventure, the sedatives wore off, and the kittens began literally caterwauling. I don't know if that's where the word actually comes from, but you get what I'm saying. And we made our first mistake. We said, let's let them out of the carriers. That should chill them out. So immediately you have one cat on the dashboard in front of the steering wheel and the other one right under the brake pedal. Neither one of these things are ideal at 70 miles an hour, but we survived somehow. And so we got home. Now, you know how most cats, when they're born, they're kittens, and they're just cute and adorable, and then they turn 6 months old, and they don't give a shit about anything for the rest of their lives? Sphinx cats are not like this. They are very engaging and loving and playful for their entire lives, and these two were delightful. Our house at the time had a real shotgun quality, and they would rumble from one end to the other like a herd of tiny elephants. They had a lot of Siamese in their lineage, so they would just chatter constantly. It was worrisome. You begin to worry about conspiracy and uprisings. But a couple of months after we acquired these lovely kittens, the terrorist attacks of 9/11 happened. I was in the Marine Corps at the time, so right away I was real gone, real deployed, real out of the house, out of the country for a long time. But a few years later, my second enlistment was up. My wife, who was at the time was a ginger and sort of sick of Florida because it's a lot of sunshine to take in for a redhead, also sick of being a military spouse, as it turns out, said, let's do something else for a while. I still had all my parts, most of my marbles, and just decided to quit pushing my luck. So got out at the 7-year mark, finished one degree and then another, and we went back to Kansas, where we had both grown up. Now, I don't know if any of you here remember this, but once upon a time, you could just get a liberal arts degree in any old thing, and as soon as you were done with college, someone would hire you and teach you whatever they wanted you to know how to do anyway, and just like that, you were in the middle class. Well, all of that magical bullshit came to an end around 2008, about the time I finished a degree in journalism. So I was just pleased as punch to get offered a job with a newspaper, any job, really, but in Northwest Arkansas. Now, my wife at the time was of two minds of this. One, newspaper jobs, even in the best of times, have always been mercurial. So she didn't see any reason to leave her university position to join me until I really stabilized. On the other hand, this would definitely get me out of her house, which she had kind of come to long for since I'd left the military. As it turns out, one of the main things keeping us together is just me being gone all the time. But I get it, you know. But there are the cats to think about. Like there are kids involved in this, right? Nevertheless, you know, over time we separated and then divorced, but it was amicable. So amicable, in fact, we wrote shared custody of these hairless cats into our divorce decree. So about every 3 months, I would drive up to Lawrence, Kansas, collect them. I paid kitty support. I would introduce them to new women that I was dating, but not like right away, right? You cannot go introducing your kids to everyone you meet off Tinder. It's not healthy for anyone involved. But on that note, I would tell you a great sort of screening for potential life partners is the bathing process, the cat bathing process, okay? Because with hairless cats, if you don't bathe them about once a week, you just have kind of these brown, gray, greasy cats. So here's what happens. You got to stalk, you got to capture them, you got to wrap them up, you got to wipe their little face, clean their little ears, scream, you know, get their little teeth clean, and then release, and then defend yourself. And then you got to do it again because there's another one, and she's been watching, right? So, you know, that it's not a thing for the thin-skinned or profuse bleeders, so this just weeded out a lot of people, and it was fine. But, you know, life goes on. Around a year or two into this whole process post-divorce, I get a call from my ex-wife. And she says, hey, we got a situation. Flannery has got a bladder stone. And what are you talking about? And she said, well, here's the thing. A bladder stone is not an emergency. But if it breaks off, a piece of that stone gets lodged in the cat's urethra, then you have a blocked cat. And the veterinarian was telling her, like, you have got to make a choice. This cat needs surgery or it needs euthanasia because this is not endurable. And I said, how much are we talking about here? I should mention that as a child and an adult, I had laughed at stories of people spending real money for surgery for domestic cats. This is not a working animal. This is not something that's out there, plowing the row to get the corn. This is not a good investment of your funds. And she said, $1,000. And I just kind of looked at the wall and I said, okay, do it. Like $1,000, just do it. I'll send you half. And she did. Because I tell you what, having these cats for a while had kind of done something to me, right? Here's the thing with owning pets, if you're not familiar, is you just pour all your love into them and you get 10% in return. But you just grow from that, right? An animal does not understand what it's doing to your house, to your schedule, to your pocketbook. Especially cats, they do not give a shit. Okay, but it grows the love muscle. That's probably not the right term. I think that means something else. But I'm talking about your heart. Just bear with me. But so Flannery went on, and she continued to live her sort of mean-spirited yet loving cat life. So a few years after that, at that point, I'd moved from Fayetteville down to Little Rock, which sort of doubles the drive time. And so that was the last that I kind of saw the cats regularly, because also they're 15. You don't uproot a 15-year-old cat, let alone two of them, every three to 6 months. That's not fair to them. And then I get a text message from my ex-wife, because that's sort of the natural progression, right? You go face-to-face, phone call, text message, anonymous death threat, I guess is what's after. But she sends me a text message, and she said, it's just time. These cats, who I had come to love despite my best efforts, were closing in on 19 years old. Sephora's body was just riddled with tumors. Flannery barely had the energy to glare anymore. At their healthiest, they weighed 9 and 10 pounds, and then they weighed 6, and then 5. And then less. And it was just, you don't put an animal through that. They're just in pain. So I said, okay. And on their very last day, Sephora had a little chicken. Flannery just slept through breakfast. And off they went. Those two cats were born to the same litter. They spent almost 20 years together. They were surrounded by a very small number of humans who loved them intensely, and they went out together. We should all be so lucky. Thank you.
Y'all keep those hands together for Ryan. Yes, we should all be so lucky to love like that. Well, this is the time where you can buy him a beer or me. We're going to take a 10-minute intermission. Please support our local vendors, the Rail Yard. Buy your book, T-shirt, there's other merch, and then make sure you get back to your seat in 10 as we get to the second act of the show. Y'all give it up for Truth. I'm here, everybody. I am so excited to share this little bit of myself with you since I have the floor and I have the mic. I want to tell you a little bit of my story that's in this book. It's on page 32. Somebody say 32. See, I just got through talking to a preacher's son, so I feel like, we need that call and response, what I'm saying, from the church. Yes. It's a very personal story that I want to share with you. It's something that happened many, many years ago, but I think it's important to just let it out. Am I safe tonight, y'all? Oh, that feels so good. Well, I'm going to tell you this story that I've only told a few people that were close to me because it was very personal, very sacred, very intimate, and very scary. But I want to share it with you tonight. I was in love with a man for 13 years. I met him in high school, and we were just really good friends, and we began dating shortly after graduation. I was 18 years old, and this person who I essentially spent my 20s with and my early 30s taught me a lot about being in a monogamous relationship, a lot about what I wanted as a woman. And sometimes that was him, and sometimes it wasn't, okay? But when it was really sweet. Around my mid-20s, we decided that we wanted to have children. I mean, we were already together, and we figured we were going to be together forever, so we didn't need papers or ceremonies or all this pomp and circumstance or other people's opinions to start the family that we thought we wanted to have. But it wasn't as easy as we thought it would be, because I had 6 miscarriages. The hardest part was an ectopic pregnancy that I had when I was teaching school in Baltimore, Maryland. This was around 2012. My guy was in the Air Force. He was a military guy, so shout out to Ryan. And he couldn't get enough leave in time, and it was very serious, if anybody knows how difficult that situation was. My father's cancer had come back, so my mother was here in Little Rock tending to him. My brother had just became an attorney in New York, and he had started a new job, so he couldn't get away from that. The city of New York is very demanding, and my friends really didn't have the money to make the emergency trip. So not only did I lose my baby, I had to go through all of that by myself. What was lovely in our relationship at the beginning started to dissolve, and there was dissension. For me, being in love was like having a sweet piece of candy in my mouth. I'm smiling, I'm happy, I'm hyper, but that sweetness began to sour. That sweetness began to sour between us because towards the end of our relationship, there was a lot of infidelity, and I thought, maybe it was because of my infertility, or maybe it was because I was putting too much pressure on him. The straw that broke the camel's back is the person that I was in love with for almost half of my life got another woman pregnant. I feel you, girl. It broke my soul. I was so angry. A part of me was angry because he was lying to me. I was tired of the lies and deception. We were trying to go back and forth to make the best decisions for our relationship, and he had a whole nother relationship, and another woman was pregnant. A part of me was slightly happy because I knew that he wanted to have children, and this was something that he wasn't able to do with me, and at that point, I was just kind of done. But there was another part of me that was extremely angry with myself, and I, as a woman, was feeling inadequate. I was angry at him, yes, because of the cheating, but I was angry at myself because this other woman was able to do something that I couldn't do. He wanted to have a child, and that was something that I couldn't do for him. I've had this conflict and this turmoil about my womanhood and how I define motherhood because I've had so many miscarriages, feeling like it was my fault because I do have endometriosis, and I do have fibroid tumors, and I did have dysplasia, and I have had half of my cervix removed, and I've had so many surgeries on my womb, the most recent being last February. And it just affected me in a very negative way that I could not procreate with someone that I intended to have children with. So my story of motherhood is not breastfeeding on the porch or sipping lemonade like I imagined or holding my baby's hand as we walk across the street, or all of these milestones that even now at 38, some of my contemporaries are experiencing with their children. My lens of motherhood comes from the desire, the deep desire that I still have to want babies. And it hasn't happened for me yet. So instead of children, I've birthed this poem. My eggs still drop, but ain't I a woman if nothing hatches? I bat my lashes to push back the tears, they fall anyway, recounting every baby that passed. But ain't I a mother if I miscarried my children? It's confusing. Can't celebrate the woman who made me when she rejects me. Can't celebrate the mother I am because my babies are dead, but I ain't standing over no graves. I have to be kinder to my eggs. One day I looked in the mirror and asked, have you told your body today that she will bear a child? My answer was no. But from that day forward, I tell myself, you will give birth. Somebody say, you will give birth. Your babies will be healthy. Your love for them will mend every open wound. I say it and I mean it. But if babies never come, ain't I still a woman if my dreams don't come true? I'm not in a celebrating mood, but my eggs still drop every other cycle of the moon. My hope still hangs in her fertile crescent. Even in her waxing and waning, I weep for my babies. But ain't I a mother too? Thank you. Thank you all for letting me get on the mic and share my story from True Sweet Tale, Stories from the Yarn Stage. You got it right here live. You can also get it in the book. We're going to keep this party going with someone who always blesses my soul. Every time I see her, the doctor, Reverend Denise Donnell, who is obsessed with the truth. So she belongs on this stage. She is a truth seer, a truth seeker, and a truth teller. She devotes all her time and energy telling the truth about the truth. The truth in her bio is that none of the academic accomplishments it boasts have anything to do with her personal goals. Denise is an unwilling victim of various systems of oppression that have inadvertently positioned her to be one who can engage people from all walks of life in ways that are meaningful, significant, memorable, and transformative. And I guarantee you every word of that is the truth. Y'all put your hands together for Reverend Denise Donnell.
I got the job because I'm black. Yep, that was the only criterion. Some white, male, cisgender, able-bodied, heterosexual, Jesus-loving genius had spent his time researching the statistical data of our neighborhood and realized, shockingly, that the demographics were changing. And sooner rather than later, our church was going to be filled with a whole bunch of black folks. And the white folks in the room were trying to figure out, what are we gonna do when our church is filled with a whole bunch of black folks? And they didn't know the answer to that. No one in the room did, but they felt like they knew someone who would, another black person. And so I was hired, and thus my tenure began. But it didn't take long for the white people in the room to realize not only did they not know what to do with those black people that they thought were coming to the church, neither did I. Because even though I've been black all my life, I haven't been poor a day in my life. And so I didn't know what to do any more than they did. And so I did what every academician does. I read a book and I took a quiz. And I still remember 3 of the questions that were asked. Number 1, can you move in one day? No, I can't move in no one day. It take me a whole day just to calculate how many boxes I need for the move. Number 2, can you find the nearest food pantry? Can I phone a friend? Number 3, what time do homeless people have to leave the shelters every morning? Homeless people have to leave the shelters in the morning? Where they do that at? So needless to say, I flunked the quiz. And in the eyes of all of those white people in the room, I flunked being black too, because they could not understand how it was possible for a black person not to understand what it means to be poor, because surely black people are poor. And so here we are in this room, black. I'm the only black person in the room with all of these white people in the room, and none of us know what to do with these black people that we believe are yet on their way. But you know, I didn't even think too much about it. Because in my mind, when I think back on it, I realized that there was only one lesson that I internalized from that experience. And that was that I am not that kind of black person. I will never be unemployed. I will never be poor. And I will never be a victim of the system of white inhumanity. You ain't got to worry about me. I am not that black person. So I don't have to try to figure this out. And so guess what? I didn't. But I wonder what would have happened to me later on in my life had I paid more attention to the people that I called myself serving. What if I had really taken seriously the plight of the black poor people that we were expecting to come through the doors of our church? What if I had truly made myself available to them? Maybe then I would have fared better with what happened to me last April, the 28th, 2020. I got this alert on my calendar. It was from my boss's boss and HR. Now, in no universe is that a good thing to happen to a person, and it wasn't a good thing for me. Because when I got on the call, I realized that by the time I hung up the phone, I was going to lose my job. Not only that, but at 6 o'clock Eastern time, I would be locked out of my computer. And the following Friday, I would be escorted out of my office with all of my personal belongings, never to return again. Because, see, I was one of the first round of 22 people laid off in response to the novel coronavirus pandemic that some folks still walking around here saying ain't true. Well, tell it to my bank account. And so here I am, not able to move. I could not breathe. I could not think. I could not function. I could not do a thing. I didn't know what to do anyway. I didn't know how to look for a job. I didn't know how to articulate my skill set. I didn't know how to file for unemployment. I didn't know where the unemployment office was. I didn't know what questions to answer on the interview. I didn't know who to list for a reference. I didn't know whether or not I was supposed to tell the truth when they asked the question, knowing that the truth was going to cost me the job. But if I don't tell the truth, I'm not being true to myself. So I'm going to lie to them about everything I know about diversity, equity, and inclusion just so that I can keep a roof over my head. I don't know what to do. And then it finally dawned on me. Ask Google. So I followed the instructions to the Arkansas Department for Workforce Services. And I drove up and I parked my car and I grabbed my book and I got at the end of the line and I stood there and I opened my book. I was reading Caste, The Origins of Our Discontent by Isabel Wilkerson. And I was on the page where she wrote these words: "We are responsible for our ignorance, and with time and open-hearted enlightenment, our wisdom." That's what she wrote. We are responsible for our ignorance, and with time and open-hearted enlightenment, our wisdom. I kept reading those words over and over and over again because I am frozen looking at this line of people in front of me, and I cannot realize, function, understand what I am reading. And so I keep reading the words until finally the words start moving. They're moving and they're changing shapes, and now they start running across the page until finally they rearrange themselves, and there's one question looking back at me on the paper. Is that me? That's the question that's being asked. Every time I look up at the line, I see a different person, and I ask myself the question that's on the page. Is that me? Is that me? Am I that black person? And the answer is yes, Denise. You are that black person whose mortgage is now in jeopardy. You are that black person whose car note is due at the end of the month. You are that black person who just lost your dental insurance. You are that black person who's about to lose your health insurance. You are that black person trying to figure out what in the hell just happened. And I pick up the book again. I said, this can't be me. I don't know what's happening to me. I'm going through something strange. So I'm just going to pick up my book again. That's what I do, y'all. Whenever I don't know what to do, I pick up a book and I start reading. So I'm reading the book. I said, I don't understand what's happening to me. I'm going to go back and start at the beginning of the chapter to see if I can understand the words that I see on this page. And I realized something. Every time I look at this paper, I see the same question. So the question is being asked to me over and over again. And I am a student of the Bible. And as a student of the Bible, one thing I know that Jesus does and does well, Jesus will call your name twice to get your attention. Anytime Jesus has to say something more than once, he's trying to get your attention. So I'm looking at this question. It keeps coming back to me. It's, is this you, Denise? Is this you? Is that me? This question. So yes, it's trying to get my attention. I need to dig a little deeper. I need to ask some more questions. I need to seek more understanding. And so I said, yeah, let's engage this question. Is this you, Denise? Is it you, Denise, who thinks that you are going to serve a group of poor people to transform their lives when you don't even want to take the chance to build and nurture and maintain an authentic relationship with them? Is it you, Denise, who thinks it's okay to sit on the boards and take jobs of people you're advocating for when you don't even know how to sit and listen to their stories? Is it you, Denise, that thinks just because you're graced and just because you're talented and just because you're gifted, you can show up in a space and speak for other folks without their permission? Is that you, Denise? Yeah, that's you. But you know what? It's okay. Life has happened. Life is happening right now, and life will continue to happen. And maybe, just maybe, this is a good thing. Because maybe now you will get to know what it's really like to be both black and poor. And then when you are able to walk in shoes that make a difference in your own life, when you are able to realize that the call of your life means being in solidarity with folks who go through the same thing, look just like you, feel just like you, act just like you, experience like you, maybe, just maybe now, the call on your life will truly be fulfilled, because it'll come from a place of knowing. It'll come from a place of humility. It'll come from a place of authenticity. It'll come from a place of truth. Now, maybe you can be more effective. Good luck with that.
Denise, I told y'all she tell the truth, and I did not lie about that. Yes. We have one more storyteller tonight. If you can handle it, say yeah. Yeah. Say yeah. Yeah. Closing out tonight is one of my good friends from the Clinton School, Nicole Hale Thaler. She's an assistant director of the Prison Yoga Project and a graduate of the Clinton School of Public Service, which means woo, she went through a lot, y'all. We were right there. And the University of Connecticut. In addition to developing, monitoring, and sustaining programs, she teaches weekly yoga classes at local juvenile and adult jails. She's also a yoga teacher at Barefoot Studios, Namaste, and a waitress at The Corner. While originally from Connecticut, Nicole has found home in community in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I'm glad she has. Y'all give it up for Nicole.
How's it look? Okay. When I was a kid,
I was convinced that when you were happy and in love, you or your partner had to die. I remember being picked up from a sleepover because the girls were watching A Walk to Remember. You know that movie with Mandy Moore where she falls in love with the cool guy in high school and then she dies of cancer. I managed to make it through other Nicholas Sparks books like The Last Song and The Notebook, but not without tears stained on the pages. 3 years ago, my father died of stage 4 metastatic prostate cancer. It was a progressive, vicious disease, but it did not define him or defeat him, and it did not define his love story. My dad saw my mom from across the room, and he said, "I'm gonna marry that woman." That part the movies got right. He whisked her away from a man on a motorcycle and said, I got you, right? They were in it for life. Growing up, I had the cool parents. My dad could do backflips on the golf course. He taught me how to do back handsprings in the front yard. My mom was the best cook and was and still is the kindest person that I know. My friends always wanted to be at our house growing up, if that says anything about the home and space that my parents created. When I was younger, we were eating Chinese takeout around the coffee table, and my mom and my dad were arguing, and my mom got really angry and she stabbed her fork on the table. The fork bounced and ended up stabbing my dad. They were worried about infection, so they had to go to the doctor, and my mom, being a nurse, had to tell her colleagues that she accidentally stabbed my dad. Just like all of their arguments, it ended in laughter and more love. As I got into high school, it got a little bit harder. My dad got really skinny. He stopped coming home as much. He was smoking a lot of cigarettes. His siblings even thought that he might have been on drugs because he was so skinny. It turns out he was addicted to scratch-offs. He was gambling, and he was $30,000 in debt. He was hiding it from my mom. Eventually, he told her, and they worked it out. I've never seen my dad cry except for 1 or 2 times, and one of them was when I was sitting in his car, and he said, "I'm not enough for your mom." Again, they made it through. In college, my dad fell 35 feet from a roof. He was cleaning out the gutters, and a swarm of bees came by, and they knocked him off balance. He shattered his tibia, his fibia, and both of his ankles, and this warrior of a man crawled to his car, drove home on the highway, and passed out in my brother's arms in the driveway. He hadn't told my mom yet he didn't want to worry her. My house became a makeshift hospital. We had a hospital bed, PICC lines, all the drugs you can imagine. Their love created space for beautiful chaos. My brother and I used to argue over who got to sit in the wheelchair when we were watching TV, like that kind of stuff. This was to be my dad's moment. He was healing in more ways than one. He even told me that he fell off the roof for a reason, like he needed something to jolt him awake. This was to be good. And then he got cancer. His disease was curable but not treatable, and the prognosis was for 3 to 5 years. And honestly, the first year wasn't so bad. He was able to go golfing, him and my mom went on dates, he could even work. It's just that it got worse from there. Cancer fucking sucks. Yeah. It takes the person that you love, and it makes them tired and sad and sleepy and pale. It robs you of family outings and peaceful evenings. With every lesion that emerges in your father's brain, it crushes your dream of him walking you down the aisle and getting to meet your kids. It robs your mother of getting to grow old with your father. Despite all this, my parents were never more in love. My mom never missed a doctor's appointment, chemotherapy, or radiation treatment. She actually used to get worried that they were going to get kicked out of chemotherapy because my dad was so loud and made everybody laugh. He would like cuss with my old gymnastics coach, like they found each other at chemotherapy. It was pretty funny. My mom was given the gift of a lifetime. She was given 4 months paid leave because her coworkers donated their vacation time. They believed in their love. I believed in their love. It's just that love can't save somebody's body when it's really, really sick. When we reached the 3rd year, my dad started to get lesions in his brain. His texting became really challenging for him. He couldn't string sentences together. I was in Arkansas, here in grad school at the time, and my mom called me and said, "We're bringing your dad to the hospital. He's in a lot of pain, and he needed the type of drugs that she couldn't administer at home." I called her, or when I was talking to her on the phone, I said, "Is this the type of situation where I need to bring a black dress?" And she said yes. So I knew I was going home to be with him when he died. So I brought the black dress. That week in the hospital is forever seared in my memory. It wasn't all bad. There was laughter. My dad actually, this is off script, but I have to tell you about it. My dad actually wasn't supposed to have his e-cigarette like in the room with him, but the nurses are like, "You're on palliative care, right? We're not going to yell at you." So whenever a nurse wasn't looking, he'd hit it and breathe it out, and he'd do it really crafty so that he almost got caught, but not all the way. He was really restless. He fought really, really hard against his medicine, so much so that the palliative care doctor told us he had the highest dose, or second highest dose of medicine ever out of all people. That's how strong he was, and that's how hard he was fighting against the medicine to stay with us. Despite his pain, his love was never more bold. After that week, I went home. I stayed as long as I could, but my body was breaking down. It just became too painful. So I left my parents alone, and on that Saturday night, my dad died at 2 a.m. with my mom holding his hand in the hospital. I woke up that night. I was sleeping in my mom's bed. I woke up right at 2 a.m. I knew something had happened. And my mom came home, and she crawled into bed. It was almost like we were already dreaming. It was serene. She looked at me, and she said, "Maybe I'll see Daddy in my dreams." I don't know why this had to happen in my family. I wish my dad didn't have to die. I wish I could give a reason for why this has to happen to anybody at all. What I do know is my parents were lucky in love, and I lucky to witness it, to be created by it, to embody it. There's a hole in my chest that will not be filled. My existence is forever altered. I am different. I will forever be different. But because of their love, I am brave. I'm strong. I'm okay. I'm open to love. I welcome it. Thank you.
Y'all keep those hands together for Nicole, Hale, Thaler, and her beautiful dad, Glenn David, who is an ancestor now. Thank you so much for your story and closing us out tonight. But to bring us on home, the woman who brought this all together and curated these 37 stories, to close us out tonight, I'm bringing to the mic Hillary Trudell. Y'all give it up.
Just gonna stop ugly crying over there in the corner. Okay, so let's just give it up for our storytellers tonight. They were so brave. Thank you so much for doing this, for sharing. If y'all just would bear with me for just a second, I have quite a few people to thank. First and foremost, I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight and supporting the people that came on the stage and really showed vulnerability and courage by sharing a piece of themselves. So thank you so much. You can clap for yourself. That's fine. That's cool. I want to thank Erin Wood and Italia Press. Where's Erin? Is she around? Erin, this book would not have happened without Erin and her excitement. You know, right when COVID hit, I was silly and thought I was going to be bored, so I called Erin and was like, we should publish a book. And she was like, absolutely. And it's been a 1.5-year journey, but thank you so much, Erin, for sticking in there with us. We could not have done this without you. I want to thank the Yarn team, Emily Hooker, Jesse Rice, James Rector, Omaya Jones, Amy Hopper, Jensen Hallett, Sarah Brown, Laura Creech, Travell McManus, our new team member, Stacy Cox, our photographer, and a huge shout out to Julianne Dunn. Where's Julianne? Julianne, somewhere. She edited, helped curate these stories. So just because you tell a story on stage, that doesn't mean it's automatically just going to go exactly that way into the book. So Erin and Julianne edited every single one of these stories, sent them to storytellers, sent them back to the storytellers, a lot of back and forth. And so thank you so much, Julianne, for that. I want to thank the Rail Yard and Lyndon Newburn, if you're here. Thank you, the Rail Yard, for letting us come to this space. It's beautiful. We get to be outside. I want to thank our amazing MC, Crystal C. Mercer. Let's give it up for Crystal. Our storytellers tonight, Chauncey, Kevin, Molly, Ryan, Denise, and Nicole. Another round of applause for our storytellers. And here's where I need you to just bear with me for 1 second, but it would not be a service to the book if I did not tell you every single storyteller that is in this book. And there are a few of them here tonight, so we're going to honor them. And I'm going to do it all in one breath. No, I'm not. Miyosh and Yosh, Howard, Spencer Lucker, Justin Sarlo, Anna Kimmel, Lorenzo Lewis, Rick Owen here tonight, David Fishman, Rona Rose, Akama Makia, Mark Beggs here tonight, Jennifer Cobb, Latasha Moore, Rick Chandler, Sarah Brown, Robin Rector, Guy Choate, Andy Vaught here tonight, Ryan D. Davis, Emily Hooker here tonight, Jason Woods, Lynn Fay, Glendalise Torres, Bailey Gamble here tonight, Patricia Ashanti, Mackenzie Davis, Ra Howard here tonight, Justin Booth was going to be here, but he threw out his back, so good thoughts to Justin, Eliza Bornay, Gloria Richard Davis, Andrea Toomer, and Mark Hotchkiss here tonight. So let's give it a huge round of applause for the storytellers. And huge round of thank you so much. And last but not least, I want to tell you that we're slowly coming back. We're going to do 2 more shows this season, so just 2, which is exciting. Yeah, yay! And we need storytellers. So the first show that we're going to do is going to be January/February. We're nailing down a date, and it's going to be Dear Diary. So if anyone listens to Mortified, we're going to do stories of your diary when you were in high school and how you're going to tell those stories and what happened because of them. I will not be telling. It's too mortifying, but we're going to do Dear Diary. That's going to be really exciting. And then we're going to have a show called Anything But Typical, and we're highlighting stories of neurotypical people living in Arkansas. So that is the other live show we were going to do. We're also doing several podcast shows. We're going to do shows about veterans, holiday shows, and Groundhog Day shows, which essentially is going to be about mistakes you keep making over and over again. So if anybody has stories that fall in with those themes or has a story that they just want to tell, I know we've already gotten some submissions, there are forms right over here on this table and a beautiful mailbox on the table. So please fill out a form. Tell us what story you're interested in potentially telling, and we will be getting in touch with you because we can't do the shows without storytellers like you. So all that being said, and I hope I thanked everyone, and if I did not thank someone, know that I love you, and I'm sorry, but I hope I thanked everyone. I want to end this night by saying thank you so much. We could not do this without brave people sharing their truth. You can be a storyteller. Anybody can be a storyteller. And we hope to see you at the next show. And last but not least, let's give a huge, warm round of applause for our storytellers. Thank you so much. Thank you. What? All right. Thank you. And if I could have all the storytellers on the stage, we're going to take a photo, and everyone have a wonderful night. Get some beer, tip your waiter. Thank you.